Let me load up the questions real quick. Oh yeah. Okay. Great. So I'm here with Joe Tolsman. Joe, how are you doing today?
Awesome. How are you, Parker?
I'm doing great. Always a good time in Vegas. And you're based out of Vancouver, right?
That's right. British Columbia.
British Columbia. So I have a few questions for you right here. You're a really interesting character because I know you're from Croatia originally and then you came over here, right? So tell me, what was that like for you when you first came over here?
It was
And how did you really get accustomed to being in the US?
it was a big change, cultural differences and different world, but it was exciting. It was really exciting going through the process, learning the language, meeting the people, building the network, and just kind of getting established and building a business. It was a great journey. Yeah.
Great. And I know when you first got here, you had poor English, and so you worked at the Dairy Queen for a bit. Um, where did you ever like doubt that you would be successful in business when you first got here, when you're just learning the language? And what was that? What was that like for you at the time?
It was exciting. I could say hello, I could smile, but that was the extent of my English. So I figured I gotta find a job where I'm gonna be interacting with people, and then learn word by word, build it up. So it was uncomfortable at times, I can tell you that, but it was a good process. But no, I never doubted that I could do it or not. I knew I'm gonna do it.
That's great. American dream, right?
Totally, totally.
Great. So did you ever have a light bulb moment when you came up with the idea for RocketPlan? And if so, like how did that come to you? Because it makes so much sense, as an actual business, but what was the thing that really inspired you to start that?
Absolutely. I started a restoration company with two other guys, two employees. We built it to over 100 employees with multiple locations. But when I started, I was the guy taking those emergency calls, responding to those emergencies middle of the night, 24/7, evenings, weekends, whenever. And I did the labor work with my technicians in the field, demolition, cleanup, setting up equipment, whatever, and then manually getting all this documentation and then going home, spending another hour or two processing the documentation, doing those reports, doing estimates, doing billing. And I was able to carry that load up until about 20 employees. But as we grew, now we're hiring bookkeepers, accountants, people in the office, estimators, those people that haven't been to the job site. And documentation comes from the job site. So we went through implementation of three different software. It was pretty painful and lengthy, an expensive process, getting 3 to 6 months of training implementation, and then realizing it doesn't work. And the reason for that was that documentation comes from the job site. All that software was built before smartphones really became smart. So the only way back then to get documentation into the system was either through desktop or laptop, which neither is really practical for the job site. So I figured I got to hire a software engineer, bring them on staff, and build something that works for the people in the field, because that's where it all begins. Build it so it works on a mobile device. So that worked well for us. We built a prototype. It looked like 1980s DOS with green and red buttons, but it worked so well. People in the field, they were able to easily capture all the documentation on the go. Didn't require any training. Documentation was falling into one place, organized in efficient ways, so estimators and accountants and bookkeepers can do their part of the job and complete the full cycle. So that was the moment that was, we got to solve the problem by capturing data in the field and have it all come into one place.
So when we talk about in the modern time, right, 2024, what do you think is the biggest mistake most insurance restoration professionals just are making in the field? And how do you think they can fix that?
They're not thinking about changing. Everybody's following the same process over and over again. So I think that's the biggest mistake.
Right, right, right. So we talk about documentation, why documentation is so important. You mentioned before in a bunch of your articles that really in the industry, you're based off of what you can document, not necessarily what you did, right? So for why is that so important? And for people that don't have their documentation right, why does that become such a big issue for them?
So Insurance is very heavy on documentation and reporting, rightfully so, because they're paying the bill. So obviously they want to make sure that, you know, the work was necessary, that the loss occurred, so it's all legitimate. For that reason, somebody needs to capture the documentation, and that pressure is on the contractor, because contractor is doing the work, contractor is the expert in the field, contractor is required to gather all the documentation so they can properly quantify the damages and properly estimate an invoice. So, you know, there's no other way but to capture the data in the field and then process it, have it in one place to organize those reports, estimates, and billing.
Hmm. So with RocketPlan, if you had to define the entire company, and I know it is hard because it is, you know, you do a lot of great work, but if you had to define the company in maybe 3 sentences, you know, just a basic description, what would you say to that?
So RocketPlan is a field-first solution built to help property restoration contractors easily capture project documentation on the go to help them streamline their reporting, estimating, and billing. Ultimately, reduces at least an hour per day per employee in manual labor gathering the documentation. It eliminates loss of revenue, which amounts approximately 20% due to lack of documentation, and it accelerates the cash flow.
Hmm. And for the people that you've worked with so far, do you have any big stories? Do you have any big case studies that you want to tell people about? Like who has this helps a ton to get done right?
So to me personally, it was very rewarding to see that we're able to help small family-run business, 3 to 5 employees, to major national and international network in the same way. And we have companies, large networks onboarding 30, 40 employees in one shot without us getting involved. And the feedback we're getting, even from the field workers, office workers, that this made their lives easier. It made their jobs better. So hearing that kind of feedback and having them on board and get going in less than an hour without us getting involved, it's a good feeling.
Great. And people that can use their software, they don't need to be a tech whiz, right? They don't need to be doing all this. They can just be doing their business and you're just assisting them with it, right?
Absolutely. We really focused on two things. One, if the person is on the job, they already know what they need to do, what documentation they need to capture. And if a person can take a selfie, they're not going to need any training. You know, somebody can take a photo and upload it to Instagram or text message someone. You know, if they can read and write, basically, that's enough to get going with RocketPlan.
Hmm. And with this industry, where do you see it heading in the future? Because I know you're on like the leading edge of this, right? Working with the people that you do with what you have. I mean, the next 5, 10 years, what do you think is going to be the most important thing for people to really understand about it?
Yeah, the people, the companies that will survive in this business, they're really going to have to focus on efficiencies. Because generally speaking, it's a very complex operation with multiple stakeholders involved. And there's a lot of documentation that goes back and forth. And as it is right now, without RocketPlan, it's very inefficient. So companies will definitely have to be forced to be innovative and to see where they can utilize technology to eliminate those redundancies, to increase their operational efficiency and basically to survive. It's necessary.
Hmm. I'm also curious, before Rocket Plan, what did people do for this, for the industry? Like, how would it be before you had Rocket Plan versus after?
You know, even to this day, there's a lot of companies that we come across that still use paper. You know, they're taking photos fall into someone's phone's gallery. You got multiple people taking photos. Now, somebody who took those photos, they need to spend extra time to organize and email it or upload it to some kind of folder or to some kind of other software. Very inefficient, very tedious work. Um, you know, sometimes there are Google Sheets, paper sheets. Sometimes there's some other apps that only do a little bits and pieces in the process. So having multiple apps and then using those multiple apps throughout the course of the project by multiple people, it becomes very inefficient and frustrating to some people. Because you know what it's like when you need something and you know you have it, but you don't have it available, and then you got to spend time, or you don't do it, and it's like, you know, start all over again at some other time.
Hmm. So if someone wanted to say start Rocket Plan right now, what would they have to do?
Well, they would have to understand the process, the workflow,
Hmm.
and build a solution that actually helps people in the field use it on the go.
Right. So if people had to look you up right now and they said, yes, this makes sense, I want to do this for my insurance restoration company, where could they find you?
RocketPlanTech.com, or go to the App Store and download RocketPlan. It's free to try it out to get going, and it creates massive ROI right out of the gate.
Great. What do you think, Dennis? Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a whole bunch here. So Joe, I've been watching, I'm behind the camera this whole time. So I think Parker's running this as like a sales webinar. That's not what we're looking for. That's great. You can ask those kinds of questions. Here's what I want to be able to ask. Can you walk us through how restoration companies typically use RocketPlan in their daily operations? You mentioned also that this is, field first. These are for the technicians, and if they can take a selfie, then they don't have to spend all this time uploading stuff and using this Frankenstein mix of all these other apps and all that. How does that work in terms of the integration with the rest of the company, right? So a restoration company is not just the field technicians. There's all these other pieces where data has to move and eventually has to get to the insurance company, right? But let's talk about kind of what the before and after is. You can't make specific promises, but what's like the range that you would typically see in terms of efficiency, cash flow, recovering more revenue? How many, it's hard to quantify, but fewer mistakes, because the insurance companies are of course going to deny you if you don't submit everything the right way, right? Because they're assuming by definition that you're not legit, because that's how it always is, right? And we want to show that from the standpoint of a restoration company, large or small, what that looks like in their operation. So someone who is a restoration company and they've never heard of RocketPlan, but the pain and the frustration of all these different tools and Google Sheets and pieces of paper and the old way of doing things, and because that's the way they've always done it. If they can see this new way, and they can see, like, I don't know if you can mention Belfour, right? But some of these other guys, that helps them understand where these efficiencies are coming from. So it's not about this sales thing about we really like RocketPlan, and yes, we can tell the story that Joe started in this, and this is what spawned the idea. But I would love to show, I want to position Joe as someone who has experienced this problem firsthand in a small company with 20 some people. And it was such a pain in the ass and so frustrating and so painful that he had to build this tool. And here's the things that are here's why, not like feature by feature, but here's the life of a technician. And they're out just looking, documenting the water and mold and fire and, the damage, and they're in the field with their phone, and how easy it is for them to go about their job and just take pictures, like taking selfies, like you mentioned, Instagram. We'd love to talk about those kinds of stories. And that way it doesn't feel like a sales pitch. Then it's not like, hey, Joe, where are you from? Or how are you doing? Or how's your day? Like, we don't have to say shit like that, right? Let's just cut straight into it, right? Does that make sense, Joe? Can you hear me? I'm
Absolutely. Yeah, talk more about use case and what's the pain, and then how RocketPlan changes.
Talk about how it works, like another industry expert. Now, the thing is, to be able to interview you, Joe, whoever's interviewing you has to have enough information, enough knowledge about what a restoration company does. Like, we don't have to be a technician that's taking pictures of mold and water damage and all that, but we have to know enough that we can guide you into telling the kind of stories that other restoration techs and the owners of these companies would appreciate, right? See, I don't know anything about restoration companies, but I know the kinds of stories that we need to hear for you to, like, you already have a lot of great content, but we're trying to fill in those gaps. So I don't think Parker's ever shared the questions that he was going to ask you. Maybe he has.
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. But we don't want you to retell the same things you've already said. If he's already said it, why would we ask him the same question? Like, where is he from, or what is RocketPlan? Like, we don't want to ask those kinds of questions, right? He's answered those questions. Why ask them again, right? We have it on video. He's definitely answered all those questions, right?
Yeah.
So
all right,
we can talk about the biggest challenges in the industry and what the day in the life looks like.
Yeah,
sure.
And just from an operational standpoint, what does it look like from before, where it's painful and this mess of all these different tools and paper and stuff getting lost and not having enough documentation for the insurance company, and then that's where you have the loss of claims and losing money and all that. to what does it look like when it's more efficient? Does it take less time in the back office or for the technicians as they're out doing their job?
Yeah.
What kinds of things, like a range of, if you can say like on average, we have like a 30% improvement in our efficiency. Or it used to take us once we would do the job, it would take us like 5 hours to fill out all these forms or whatever. And now it's like already done. Right. That
Cool. So how do you want to go about it? Should I just talk or do you want to ask some questions?
Just talk, and then Parker and I can guide. What we don't want to do is this is not, this is you that should be doing like 85% of the talking, right? And someone like me, typically I'd be interviewing you, but we're trading up Parker, is there just to kind of guide you along the way to make sure we're covering the points and stories we want to hit. But generally, someone like you, you're already so eloquent, you don't really need much guidance at all.
Cool. All right, so I'll talk about the biggest challenges in the restoration industry are processing documentation. The biggest challenge is processing documentation to get estimating and billing done and actually collecting those payments. The nature of the business is that all the documentation comes from the job site, assessing the damages, running the project, and there's a big disconnect between the job site and the office in regards to capturing the documentation, have it in one place, so then the reporting, estimating, and billing could be efficient. And insurance industry, it's notoriously heavy on documentation, and rightfully so. They're paying the bill, so obviously they want to have everything documented and properly addressed and making sure everything is legit. So the pressure is on the contractor when they're doing the work, from damage assessment to running the work to completing the work, to capture all the documentation. They have the evidence to report to insurance companies, but also to use that information so they can properly quantify the damages, estimate and invoice accordingly. So industry is lacking field first solution, and we built RocketPlan to help specifically people in the field easily capture project documentation on the go and have all the information stored into one centralized source of truth for automating and streamlining process of reporting, estimating, and billing. Without RocketPlan, it's a lot of time. There's multiple people that capturing the documentation in the field. And without RocketPlan, there's a lot of manual labor that is required to organize the documentation, whether they're photos, their notes, their drawing logs, equipment logs, whatever it might be that comes from the job site. There's lots of manual labor required to summarize that information into one place. So we built RocketPlan that anybody who's literate enough to take a selfie, use a smartphone, and it's already on the job, doesn't need a training. It takes less than 15 minutes to set up the account and run through the example of the project. And at that point, there's a massive ROI that RocketPlan generates. RocketPlan is a profit center to the restoration contractor. We had companies onboarding 30, 40 employees in one shot without us getting involved. And the feedback we're getting from the end user in the field to the office users to the management, that it's astronomical change since they've been using RocketPlan. People are happier, management is happier. They're generating this ROI by eliminating all these redundancies, and it's a win-win throughout. So
you mentioned that there's by having simple electronic capture in the field by these technicians, so it goes central, so you don't have to worry about moving documents around. That gives us efficiencies in reporting, estimating, and billing. Do you have any general sense of like what percent efficiency or how much time is being saved at each, like especially like maybe it's not just less headache, but because there's more photos or more documentation, the claims are bigger, or we're getting it a lot faster, right? Or anything you can share around that we can quantify as best we can.
Absolutely. So the feedback we're getting from our customers consistently throughout customers reporting, they reduced at least an hour per day per employee by reducing that or eliminating completely that manual labor of organizing documentation and uploading it. They reported that they eliminated loss of revenue approximately 20%. Prior to RocketPlan, a lot of work has been done, but there was no documentation. And then that kind of work was not invoiced, or they were not getting paid. And that amounts to about 20% increase in revenue with RocketPlan. RocketPlan also helps accelerate cash flow, which most of the insurance companies will take 60, 90 days to get paid. And in addition to that, will take extra time from the time the job is completed until company produces the invoice and sends it out. So with RocketPlan, all the information is captured in real time. It's in one place. So if the project is completed today, you can invoice today. You don't have to wait to gather this and organize this documentation. Everything's in one place and it's ready to go.
Wow. So take us through a life of a technician, perhaps before RocketPlan. Like, what would their day-to-day look like, and how has that changed since they got on RocketPlan, for example? And how much time and energy do they save?
So here's an example. In a situation where I'm a contractor, I get the call. Could be 2 a.m., could be on a weekend, on evening. So I'm answering the call and I'm getting requests for service. Somebody who lives in apartment 301, 123 Main Street, reporting there's a burst pipe, the water is gushing everywhere, they need help. So I get on the road, go to their place. The step one I need to do is make sure that the water stopped, shut it off if they haven't done it already. And then the next thing, I need to get their work authorization, authorizing me to do the work. I need to start documenting that space, that apartment. And usually in situations like this, it's not only one apartment, it's multiple apartments, common areas, multiple floors. So step one is documentation, and that's gonna entail taking photos, infrared camera photos, having the evidence to report to insurance company, but also have it for contractor use internally to determine what scope of work needs to be conducted in order to complete this job properly according to ISCRC standard and general practices. So the next step in that part of the damage assessment is listing what materials are damaged. For example, if I'm in apartment 301 in a living room and the area is damaged, so what's damaged? Floor, wall, ceiling, floor. What kind of floor? Laminate, carpet, tile. There's so many different variables. All the data needs to be captured on the go. It has to be accurate and it has to be efficient. Without RocketPlan, it's very inefficient to be writing up the lists, taking some notes, taking pictures in phone gallery. With RocketPlan, we made it easy for the person to go through that process. They're already familiar with what they need to do, what information they need to capture, make it easy for them to do it on the go. So once they leave that room, all that information is in one place, it's organized, and it's accessible and available to the next person in the chain. And usually that's an estimator and a bookkeeper who needs that information as a backup for their estimating and billing.
Wow. That's night and day, isn't it? For the people.
Do we have some technicians that can talk about what a pain in the ass it was before using the old process, and now they just come in with the app and they snap, you know, the floor, the walls, the ceilings, all as part of their process to get the authorization.
Absolutely. I talked to one of our customers yesterday, and they were on East Coast, so it was a little bit after hours, but two of their technicians came to the office to drop off some tools. And the manager says, you know, before we use RocketPlan, they came to the office and they would spend another hour or two organizing paperwork. Since they've been using RocketPlan, they drop off the tools and they go home.
So I would think that if I was a technician at a restoration company, I would prefer working at a company that uses RocketPlan. If I were, you know, choosing between different companies, I would choose company A because I don't want to deal with the headache of this old process.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can reach out to them and I'm sure they would be willing to get on camera and have an interview.
Do you think you could just give us 3 or 4 of these folks and we could just get on Zoom with them for 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah.
What I really want to do is rub the salt into the wound. It's for them to talk about what a pain in the ass it was before it was just snap, snap, snap on the phone.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
Okay. And it's a friendly interview. This is not a live kind of thing. We're just going to pull out little snippets. It's you know, going to make them look good, that kind of thing. And we'll give them some SEO power by linking to them as well. Because I'm sure they'll get permission from their boss or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we got lots of those that just said, you know, the life it's life changing since they've been using RocketPlan.
So you talked about, Joe, this 20% loss of revenue. Let's quantify that a little more. Is that from the insurance company denying it because there's not enough information, or they're not getting as much because it's not as complete, or 20% loss of revenue? That sounds bad.
It's huge. You know, I know when I used to run a restoration company, we complete the job, we invoice, and then 3 weeks later, I have technician come in. Oh, sorry, boss, we had another apartment on this job. I mixed it up with another project. You know, what a mess to deal with. Like 3 weeks after we send an invoice out. You know,
So you did all the work and you didn't even get paid because the insurance company denied you, but that was already 3 weeks ago, so it's not like you can go back and take new pictures, right?
Totally. But then how many times we did something that we don't even know, you know, that they just kind of slip through the cracks. Sometimes we caught it because it got mixed up with something else. But how many times we've done the work that hasn't been recorded, estimator in the office had no way of knowing it, so we just did an invoice.
So you're
And
saying often that the restoration company comes out because it's an emergency. So somebody come out right now because it's flooding, the water's everywhere, right? So you have to go to apartment 301, you know, assess the damage. Of course, it's like an emergency, right? For the community manager or whoever, you know, is the building facilities manager. The technicians, you know, 2 a.m. in the morning, they're collecting all this kind of stuff. It goes into the estimator to figure out, you know, how much it's going to be. Then there's a repair, and that takes out however long. And then you submit to the insurance company, and it's only then, at that point, that you find out that there wasn't enough documentation, right? After all this work is done, you wouldn't even know until the insurance company rejects you, right?
absolutely, yeah.
So there's this kind of fear. I don't mean to be putting words in your mouth, but there's this kind of fear where after you've done all this work and you have to pay your people as the restoration company, and then you find out they are not going to pay you on part of it weeks later. So like every time you submit, it's like opening the envelope and wondering whether there's enough money inside, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you have some folks who run the restoration companies that can talk about what's that like, not having to, because what I'm trying to get at is the whole fear and frustration of, you know what, I'm submitting these claims and now I have peace of mind. Whereas before it's like, I know that I'm getting denied like 1 out of 5 times, or, you know, I'm just hesitant because sometimes I'm not going to get paid because they're going to find the insurance company. I hate them because they're going to find some way to deny my claim.
Yeah,
Now I don't have to worry about this.
yeah. Yeah, we had people telling in their own words how since using RocketPlan, there's no pushback from adjusters.
Well, I'm not looking for a testimonial. Oh, RocketPlan is so good. I'm looking for these restoration companies to say, look, my crews, they work so hard out in the field doing this stuff, but the insurance companies, like I get you know, they need to, you know, people are trying to submit fraudulent claims, but this is so hard because I'm running this business and we're sending people out, you know, to these emergencies, and sometimes we miss details. And it's not like we're bad people, but the insurance company hammers us if we miss one thing, right? And now I don't have to constantly worrying about, you know what, did we miss some of these things, or just build it into the fact that, you know what, I know I'm just going to lose a certain amount of money just because we make mistakes.
Yeah.
If we get a couple people just to talk about that for a few minutes, but not like a testimonial. I really want to focus on their story and what a pain in the ass it was. Like, you know, there's this one job, the insurance company, you know, it was $120,000 and the insurance company only gave us 40,000 or whatever it was because we forgot this one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, send me the link with your availability and I'll get 2-3 people lined up.
And this doesn't have to be this is literally just collecting a couple stories, right? It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I can get this guy Hutch that I talked to yesterday, so I'm sure he's gonna be more than willing to do that.
Because the webinars and the other stuff that you've already done, I feel like you've already covered that, the whole like RocketPlan CEO point of view. I feel like you've done that very well. And we had a little extra footage here, which is great. But what I didn't find when I did some research was the stories of these customers telling these real kinds of stories that we're looking for. The pain of the technician in the field and the pain of the owner of the restoration company.
Yeah.
Because then we take that, then we can apply our dollar a day strategy. And you know, like we sat down in person, we talked about how dollar a day would work here.
So do we have enough to get going, or we still need to get these guys on camera?
I think we have enough from your point of view and from this here to start running ads tomorrow if we have everything connected, right? So the whole point of dollar a day is it's lightweight testing because we're only hitting these restoration companies. This is not a Super Bowl ad, right? It's very, very targeted. But I'm the kind of person where I don't want to just win. I just want to absolutely crush the thing. So yeah, we could probably win based on what we have already. But I'm one of those where I'd want to win by 100 points. I don't want to just like barely win.
Okay, I like that, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Cool, I'm gonna organize it with Hutch, send me the link, please, with your availability for next week.
Yeah, and then Parker can just send his booking link, and that way these other folks can just book 15 minutes with him.
Yeah,
just need
absolutely.
3 or 4 of these, yeah.
Yeah, are you gonna be on the call, Dennis?
If you want me to be.
Yeah, please, that would be good, so we're
Parker's in training, he's learning, right? But
Okay.
I'm always here to make sure that everything goes well, right? And I'm like the training wheels. Hopefully I'm not necessary, right?
Yeah, cool. Cool. All right, that's good. What else? What else we need to get going?
I think this is good. I've got the questions that I wanted, and I think they're mostly answered here. I think, Joe, the thing that's nice about your business is that it's not a complicated business proposition. Now, the software you have to be able to process all this stuff and prompt the technician to fill out the information in the right way and how you submit it and organize it for the estimator and submitting claims. Like, I'm sure there's all kinds of complicated stuff in there, right? But to the technician and to the owner of the restoration company, because you've absorbed the complexity, it's actually a very simple value proposition, which you basically explained like 6 different ways today, right? And I know you've explained it like thousands of times over and over again, because that's what a founder does, right?
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I think when we talked in Vegas, you gave me a very compelling value proposition. And that's why I thought, the issue is not whether his software is good. The issue is not whether it's like easy to explain, because it is. It's simply these other restoration companies don't know about you, even though you're exhibiting at some of these big shows that come up and whatnot. I think I think your main issue is exposure.
So letting the world know. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
No.
this is why I said I love these situations, because you have a good company, the customers love you, everything's solid in terms of how all the necessary ingredients that we need. Now we need to run $1 a day. So we want to run a test for the next few weeks. And the thing with $1 a day is it's not about like direct advertising where we can tie to the exact lead and call and whatever, especially when it's SaaS like this and your LTV is high enough that it's like this model works very well. It's that you should notice significantly more people just in any particular channel, just coming to the site or coming up to you when you're at a show or hitting you on social media, or just in general, you got 100 employees. These leads are going to come in just because there's more pure weight of exposure.
Yeah. Dennis, I think you're spot on. So one thing I want to recap, the value prop and the hook, the pain we're solving is they're not getting paid. Everybody's got the same problem, and everybody struggles with getting the documentation. So everybody knows, that's the root of the problem, not having the documentation in one place, because there's no easy solution.
The issue you have in restoration is the exact same issue when it comes to medical billing, right? Because these doctors are all the old way and they get denied by the insurance. It's the same thing, right?
Yep.
It was the same way for the auto adjusters, but of course now they use these different apps and they, come out and take pictures. It's the same thing, but correct me if I'm wrong, in restoration, because it's more niche than auto and medical, it just hasn't caught up as fast.
Yeah, totally.
But it's the same principle where the insurance company is not, because there's not enough information. And whoever's coming out and taking the pictures was filling out a clipboard and taking Polaroids or, that.
Still, there's 280 billion of claims, property claims in the United States per year.
Yeah. Is there one that, this is not necessary, but it'd be nice to have, but like one of the major incidents, like a Hurricane Katrina or something where there's a lot of jobs to be done. And because these guys are out there spread thin, because it's hard to send an adjuster out or whatever, because there's just like so many, the whole city got flooded, this kind of thing. We can talk about the lost revenue, or how some companies, because they were on RocketPlan, they were able to seize, not that we, rejoice in other people's misfortune, but, when these things happen, these companies were able to grow and help a lot of people. That's the angle. When the disaster happened, they were able to help a lot more people than they would have otherwise, because they're saving an hour per day per technician, right?
We can also put a campaign and have it ready to go. So next time something happens, we can target the area and get them free access.
Yeah.
And
not even just disasters. Because the disaster is what, gets in the public's attention. But every day there's, sprinkler systems and fires and there's all these things that happen every day in every city, right?
Recession proof anytime. Yeah. So I want to add to this also, this massive pain that we're solving. Then people are just like, yeah, it sounds good, but I don't have time. So I think the very critical piece to go right after that is how easy it is to use, how easy it is to implement. Ease of use, ease of implementation. because in our sales cycle currently, that's, the biggest fall. People get on a call, but then it's like, yeah, I gotta talk to my guy. I don't know when we have time. Let's do it next week. Next week we get busy. It's like, dude, by the time you finish sitting on a toilet, you can set up account and have it ready to go. Like
In
that's
just an hour. Yeah, the onboarding's so easy. Can you use an app to take pictures? Sure. Can you use Instagram? Done.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're saying number one is that it's not getting paid. So the insurance company is kind of the evil villain here. And then number two is getting paid faster.
So I'm bringing this up if you can also push in that area when you talk to our customers for the interviews.
Yeah.
Ask them, what was the onboarding like? When did you start seeing ROI? It's like
Yes.
same
Yes.
day, right?
Exactly. Because that's the number one fear of people who are not like e-com, like software people like us, is that people just naturally are afraid of another thing to learn, another piece of software. Oh shit, I have to learn this other thing now.
Especially in this industry where the only thing they can relate to was something that was just a nightmare. It took forever to get it going and it's still not working properly. And now, when do I have time to try another thing? No.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
of those other customers, have you ever done sort of interviews to say like, okay, what was it that caused you to decide, what was the thing that said, okay, I'm going to do RocketPlan, right? Because they've known about RocketPlan, they know about the value proposition, but this one thing caused them to say, okay, let's do it. What was that thing?
Sorry, what was the one reason? What
Yeah.
makes? Yeah.
And that's the thing. If we can figure out what that is, and there'll be like usually a couple things. That's how we drive a lot of people from awareness to signing up. And it's literally when you have these do you have like these onboarding things recorded in Zoom, for example?
Yeah.
Can you just run those calls through ChatGPT to get the transcript? And then I want to know, what was the thing that caused them to sign up? What was the last thing? They're thinking about this, and this, but then it was this one thing that happened. Someone said this one thing. It was this one feature. It was something you said. It was they met you at a show. It was like, what was the thing that caused them to sign up? So from the sign up, if we were to go reverse one day, what was that one thing that happened or thing that somebody said? That's what I want to know. So that's called the reverse customer journey.
Yeah.
Because most people think about a funnel where you start at the top and go to the bottom. The most powerful thing is actually the reverse customer journey. Go from the conversion to what was the one thing they did before they signed up. And then we want to hammer whatever that thing is.
Yeah, cool.
So maybe, you would know because you're the CEO, right? Or whoever does the onboarding, they would know. You have these Zoom calls recorded. Like run all the Zoom calls through the transcription and find out what is it they said,
Yeah. Well, generally speaking, is getting field documentation easily captured and delivered into one place.
Yeah, but that's true. But was it because they just had one claim denied? Was it because somebody was complaining about, man, this is such a pain in the ass having to do this paperwork?
Yeah.
Like,
All
what was
of
the
it.
thing? You know what I'm saying, Joe? I want to isolate that one.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a guy
And
who's
they think they know their customers, but they can't answer this question.
yeah.
So meanwhile, think about that because that will help us a lot.
Yeah, cool. Cool. All right. So you got your questions. If we're done with it, switching gears. So Facebook, I got into some of the groups. One of them has 9,000 members.
Okay.
How we can leverage that. And one of the admins for the group is a good friend. So I can get him to push some of the content into the group.
Okay, so the thing with groups is you as the vendor never want to appear predatory, right? Even though your buddy's the admin.
Yeah.
Right, because the last thing, like, you have a group of plumbers, and the last thing they want is like all these marketing companies coming in like advertising to the plumbers, right? Or advertising to the restoration companies. So the best way to come off is that you and your buddy are highlighting people that have succeeded in a certain way, who have achieved something. And it just happens to be that this highlight or award or, talking about how good they are happens to live on the RocketPlan website. Right? So that's the best way to do it. Maybe there's a webinar, maybe there's a free resource. I see that the website seems to attract a lot of these calculators. It seems like a lot of the traffic is like air mover calculator, dehumidifier power consumption calculator. Like you don't really have a lot of traffic come to the site, but it's flood dehumidifier, Belfour BCS, moisture mapping template, drying log for water damage, So people are coming to the site for this kind of stuff, but the more informative or where we're elevating other people and they happen to see that that's associated with RocketPlan, that's the angle I want with Facebook groups. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Because what you don't want to do is, hey, do you want to save more money or eliminate headaches or not be denied by the insurance company? Then you're like obviously selling, and that looks bad inside a group, right?
Yeah. Good, makes sense. Can you please check those last two campaigns we have on Meta? And it's not going in, like it's been approved, but it's just no traction. I guess there's not enough data and it hasn't been set up properly with the pixel.
So I would love to do YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for you. I think Twitter's going to have the best relevancy in targeting, but Facebook is going to hit the demographic better.
So you remember what we talked about? I had email campaigns going out. Email campaign had this landing page. We put unique pixel to the landing page.
Yeah.
Because every single email we sent out, we know that person works in the industry. So
Right.
at some point we had 5,000 visits to that page, to that pixel.
Yeah.
And that would be like the best quality.
Yeah, we want to season, just reuse that. Our traffic has gone. Let's see, the last time we had any traffic was October 2023, and since then it's been very low.
So what are you looking at?
I'm just looking at actually I should look at the Google Analytics. I'm looking at some of these SEO tools.
So I had two different people set up campaign and I was very specific. I said, I don't want algorithm try to figure out who's the right person to target. Let's use the pixel because we have 5,000 visits there. So it's 5,000 people who are ideal customer profile.
So let's take since you have the emails, that could be a custom audience on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Actually, better on Facebook, Google, and LinkedIn.
Okay.
Obviously, the Facebook pixel being seasoned is good too. If we're optimizing the conversion, I think that's going to be tougher because of the nature of B2B, but I think definitely targeting anyone who's in that audience on a reach or engagement campaign will be very powerful.
So are you able to figure out what's wrong with the setup of those ads? Why?
Yeah, we'll take a look.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, because they're ready to go. I increased the daily budget and I can't figure out what's holding it back.
All right, we'll take a look. Usually it's because your content sucks. And you need these little videos, right?
Yeah.
So even today's videos, this will help.
Okay.
Because people, look, you know this, Joe, people don't want to feel like they're being sold to, right?
Yeah. Totally.
No one wants that. But they love listening to stories of other people that are like them.
Yeah.
That's the whole approach that we have. It doesn't look like advertising what we're doing, but it absolutely is.
Educational approach, yeah.
Yep. Especially when you're talking to an informed customer, and especially in B2B, right? This is not selling potato chips.
Yeah. Right on.
All right.
Cool.
So we'll take a look at that ad campaign, and meanwhile, Parker's going to send that link so that your customers can book.
Good.
And I will try to be there for all of them. If I'm around, then I will be there.
I'm sure the ones.
Okay.
Cool. Appreciate that. So for the next steps, do you know what's the turnaround on having this little clips and start pushing some content out?
Let's just say, because it's the weekend, give it till like Wednesday, just to give us a buffer of a day or two. We're entrepreneurs, so we work on there is no time out when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But, employees and VAs, I'm not saying we don't value family and weekends and things like that, but we don't want to be assholes and force them to work on the weekend.
Yeah. Cool.
Few days, but we should be able to take a look at the ad account now. Parker, you have access? You've validated the access and whatnot?
We should have access, yeah.
Okay, so we can go look at the ad accounts now. Actually, we're going to eat a little bit of food and then we're going to go look because I haven't eaten yet today.
That's awesome.
I'll be hangry if I don't get to eat.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah. Cool, guys. Thanks very much. Call me if you need me. I'm going to be around.
Awesome. Yeah, and then text or email or whatever if you have any questions along the way.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, see you. Bye.